So in the last few days, I've seen a lot of people trying to predict the starting 11 for the England World Cup squad in 2026. And of course, I've got my own thoughts on it. So I'm going to be giving you my predictions for the starting 11. But not only that, I'm actually going to go one step further. And I'm going to try and predict the entire 26-man squad for England in that World Cup in 2026. And for the goalkeepers, these are the 6 that I picked out. Pope, Pickford, Henderson, Johnston, Trafford, and Ramsdale. Now, I was trying to think about this, and I was trying to think, is there any way that Jordan Pickford isn't the number 1 goalkeeper for England in 2 years' time? And I thought, maybe, perhaps if Everton get relegated this season and have to play a year in the Championship. But I thought, even then, I think Jordan Pickford has done such a fantastic job ever since he first became England number 1 in 2017. If you think about all the tournaments that he's been with us, the amount of penalty saves he's had, I mean, he's arguably man of the match in that Spain final in the Euros that just went past, where, it could have been maybe a bit more embarrassing, maybe 3 or 4-1 if it wasn't for some of the saves that Pickford made. So for me, I think all the others, while they're all decent goalkeepers, they will have a long way to go to catch up with Pickford, and the fact that by the time the World Cup comes along, he'll be 32. For me, he is definitely the number 1 goalkeeper. Then in terms of the other 5, who are they going to be the second choice goalkeeper, and who's going to be third choice just to be around the squad? And I was trying to think about this. And this might be controversial right off the bat, but I'm looking at Aaron Ramsdale, and I'm struggling to see how he makes that England World Cup squad. Now, bear with me, because I think that he is potentially England's second best goalkeeper, and there was a period of time when he was at Arsenal that first season where I thought he could maybe challenge Pickford as well. However, obviously since David Reyes come in, he's been falling down the pecking order, and he's now at Southampton. And I'm basing this on the fact that are Southampton going to be in the Premier League this time next year? And I just don't see it personally. I think Southampton are probably very likely, and at the moment after 3 games, yes, it's very early on, that they're maybe even favourites to go down. So I do worry if Aaron Ramsdale is going to be a Premier League goalkeeper. What does he do if Southampton do go down? Maybe he'll have to get a move to the Premier League. But if you think about all the Premier League teams and the goalkeepers that they do currently have, is he going to be getting a starting spot at any one of those clubs? I doubt it, especially when you consider the fact that Pope, Henderson and Johnson are all starting week in and week out. So, honestly, I am going to say that Aaron Ramsdale will not be making this World Cup squad. That's my first controversial pick, but I think it's got to be said. I think Pickford number 1. So then we have to decide a number 2 between the rest. And I'm also not going to select Nick Pope, just because I think by the time the World Cup comes around, he'll be 34 years of age. There may be a time where, obviously, he is the best shot stopper outside of Jordan Pickford, but he is just awful with his feet. He just really is. He doesn't look comfortable at all, just making simple passes. It looks like a little bit of a chore for him. And so I just don't think that he's going to be the goalkeeper that England need. Maybe as a third choice option, you would be great, but I really just don't think that if Jordan Pickford ever were to get injured, touch wood that he doesn't, I don't think Nick Pope is ready to step up in his place. So for me, I'm not going to take Nick Pope either. So that leaves then Johnson, Henderson and Trafford. And for me, Johnson and Henderson are going to be starting week in, week out at both Wolverhampton Wanderers and Crystal Palace respectively. But if you want someone to replace Pickford if he were to get injured, I think you want a good shot stopper who's also decent with his feet. And for me, I think the outstanding one behind Pickford, not Ramsdale, because I don't think he's going to be in the Premier League this time next year or playing top flight football, I think it's going to be Dean Henderson. So for me, I'm taking Dean Henderson as my number 2. And then the third choice goalkeeper, it's a bit of a muchness. I mean, no one really cares who's the third choice goalkeeper, but I think look at Sam Johnston, and I think he'll be 33, a year younger than Nick Pope. And I think with Pickford being 32, Henderson will be 28. I think we've really got to start looking forward and ahead to the next generation of England goalkeepers, and there's a bit of a dearth there. So I think for me, I think it's going to be James Trafford, who, yes, is playing Championship football at the moment, but I think will probably get promoted with Burnley, and if not, because he's so young and people will see the upside and the potential in him, that he will probably get a move to the Premier League if Burnley don't get promoted. So I think for me, first choice is Pickford, second choice is Henderson, and third choice is James Trafford. And then, of course, we come on to right back, where England have a lot of high quality talent. And if you think about these 6 options, these are the 6 that I think will be in and around the England squad in 2 years' time. Obviously, no Kieran Trippier since he's retired from internationals, which actually brings me on straight away to Kyle Walker, who's been England's first choice right back for the last few tournaments, and I think rightly so. But I think last season, I think we definitely saw a dip in his form for both club and country. And I know he's got that amazing recovery pace, but you got to think in 2 years' time, 36 years of age, is he still going to have that? If he loses that, then I think, his place in the England squad is really a threat. And for me, I think it's one where I think England and maybe even Manchester City have moved past Kyle Walker, and now they may be looking at the likes of Rico Lewis, who's started the first 3 games for Manchester City, looked really, really good on the ball. Technically, he's very, very gifted, and he's getting into all sorts of attacking positions as well. And for me, it's one where I think England should be looking to the future rather than looking back. So I think it's one where Rico Lewis is probably already taking Kyle Walker's spot in that Man City side. I think in 2 years' time, Kyle Walker will be the second choice right back to Rico Lewis. So for me, yes, one of the best right backs the Premier League's ever seen, but I don't think Kyle Walker makes it at the age of 36 in 2 years' time to the World Cup. So no Kyle Walker for me. And immediately that puts Rico Lewis, at top of the pecking order if he's going to be Manchester City's first choice right back, which I think he is, and I think he could definitely do a job for England as well. And then I look at the likes of Ben White, and he would be in my England squad. He would have been in my England squad for the Euros had he made himself available for selection. We don't really know the truth, because after Steve Holland and Gareth Southgate left, you thought maybe Ben White would be in this England squad, but he decided to still remain unavailable. So is that going to change in 2 years' time? Realistically, no one really knows apart from Ben White, and maybe it's one where he just doesn't fancy playing for England. He doesn't like the international environment, whatever it may be. We can't speculate because we don't really know. So at the moment, I'm going to say that Ben White can't be England's right back because he's just not made himself available. So he's not for me. And then I look at Reece James and I think to myself, is he going to be fit by the time that World Cup comes around? Obviously, he had a horrific hamstring injury, needed surgery, was out and missed 38 games in all competitions for Chelsea last season. He's missed the first 3 games of the season as well in the Premier League. Is he going to be fit? And really, when I'm looking at it, I think he's the perfect mix of Trent Alexander-Arnold and Kyle Walker, where he's great on the ball, but also great defensively as well. But I just can't see him being fit, and it's such a shame. So, based on what I've seen in the last 18 to 24 months, I can't with confidence say that Reece James is going to be fit come the World Cup. So, it's not going to be him either for me. Which then leaves Rico Lewis, Trent Alexander-Arnold, and Tino Livramento. And let's, of course, talk about Trent Alexander-Arnold, who, in my opinion, should be England's first choice right back, because I look at him and I look at his talent on the ball and I just think, wow, what a player. The fact that he was being misused as a midfielder under Gareth Southgate, I think it was absolutely criminal. I think it was very clear that his best work is when he's playing at right back and drifting into the midfield rather than starting in that position anyway. And I thought he kind of got thrown under the bus under Gareth Southgate during the Euros, and that for me that really hurt, because I think he's a phenomenal talent. So for me, I think absolutely Trent Alexander-Arnold has to be going to the World Cup, because not only has he one of the best players in the world in his position, he's also got a unique skill set that no other player has, and I think for England you have to be getting that into the team. So for me, I think Trent Alexander-Arnold and Rico Lewis are definitely going to be going to the World Cup. And Tino Livramento, I've put him there because I'm not ready to get rid of Livramento just yet, because I think he's obviously taken that first choice right back slot for Newcastle United this season, started ahead of Kieran Trippier, but I also think he's got great versatility and can play left back as well. So it's one where left back has been a bit of a problem area for England, so I'm not willing to discount Tino Livramento just yet, because I think he's going to be on that up and up, and I think that Livramento is definitely one to keep an eye on in the future, which actually brings me on to the left back. So let's talk about them, because I've got Luke Shaw, Ben Chilwell, Tyrick Mitchell, Lewis Hall, Josh Hinselwood. And so for me, these will probably be the 5 players that I'm looking at in 2 years' time for that World Cup. And obviously, I think Shaw and Chilwell are the outstanding options about left back. I mean, they're the most experienced. And I think probably Luke Shaw is a bit ahead of Ben Chilwell. And then you think about the other 3. I really like Tyrick Mitchell. My question is he that good on the ball? Is he that good going forward? Because I think that's an issue, considering England are going to have a lot of the ball, because they'll probably end up being one of the favourites just based on all the players that we have and the quality of the areas that we have. And I think he will develop in that left wing back role at Crystal Palace under Oliver Glasner. But is he as good as some of the other players? I think, I often think about the education that a footballer has had growing up, come through the academy. And I think at Crystal Palace, while they've got a fantastic academy now in recent years, I don't think Tyrick Mitchell is one of those which has outstanding technical ability and can really excel at one of the top clubs, if I'm being honest. I think he's just a very good, solid mid-table Premier League player, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think a lot of people snub their noses at that, but I think actually Terry Mitchell will go on to have a very good Premier League career, and there's nothing wrong with it. But I just don't think he's at the level, if you think about what the options we have on the right-hand side, that I think England needs. So for me, it's not going to be Mitchell. I then think of Hinshelwood at Brighton. I mean, he's only 19 at the moment, playing left back. He's a right-footed, of course, can play at right back and left back. But I just think at 19, and I still see a couple of mistakes from him at Premier League level. I think when you think about the Brighton Man United game, could he have done better? He let Diallo cut inside on the left foot for that Man United goal, where you know he's a left-footed player. You want to be pushing out to his right on the outside. Can you do better? And so I think he's still going to be young. He's going to still improve over the years. And I think, for me, I think he's going to stay in England under 21s for a couple more years. And maybe in 2 years' time, we'll have a conversation about maybe he should be in this England squad. But I think for me, I think it's just a little bit too early. Which brings me on to Shaw, Chilwell and Hall. And I'm going to be honest, I really like Ben Chilwell. I think he is a phenomenal talent. Going forward, he's one of the best attacking fullbacks in the Premier League. But I just think with 6 months now, he's going to be at Chelsea on the bench, not playing. And he didn't quite get the move he wanted in the summer. No one really came into him. And I think that's an issue as well. He's going to be 29 come the World Cup. Will England be looking past Ben Chilwell? I think they might do. I really think they might do. So for me, I don't think it's going to be Ben Chilwell either. Which then brings me on to Shaw and Hall. And I think with Luke Shaw, he's obviously, in my opinion, England's best left back when he is fit. I think he's a very underrated player, and I think his versatility going forward and at the back is really crucial. And for me, I think if he were to be fit, I still think he's England's best left back. And I think we saw that in the Euros as well. When he came into the side, England were a much, much better side. I think the balance of the left-hand side improved massively. And I think he's a really intelligent player. And by the time he's the World Cup, he'll be 31. But I still think he's worth persisting with. And if he can just put those injuries behind him, I think he's absolutely England's first choice left back. Which brings me on to who's going to debutise for him. And you've got the likes of Tino Livramento and you've got Lewis Hall, both at Newcastle. But which one is going to rise? Because I think Rico Lewis could also play left back, as we saw in that international in the Nations League against Finland. And I think he could do really well inverting into midfield. Against stronger opposition, do you really want both your fullbacks in Trent Alexander-Arnold and Rico Lewis inverting? Probably not. But I do think, I think they're both intelligent players. You could both do a job regardless of where they're playing, and they can adapt to whatever the system and the players around them need. So I don't think that's an issue as much. I do just think that we need, for England, a deputy to Luke Shaw, someone who we're going to be giving early games to before they're probably ready, in the hope that they're going to be ready, and when Luke Shaw does eventually move on from the England squad, that they can play left back, start week in, week out, because that is a bit of a problem area. But I do think, for Newcastle and for the club football, this competition is going to be very interesting to watch going forward for England fans, because I think Livramento is probably going to get more minutes at both right back and left back. And I think while Hall is playing a couple of games now, when Sven Botman comes back fit, is he going to partner Fabian Schär at the centre backs? I think probably so. Then that means that Dan Burn and Lloyd Kelly are probably going to be being pushed to left back. Does Hall get the minutes in the next 2 years? He's probably going to get increasing minutes, but he's going to get as many as Livramento? I don't think so. So I actually think it's going to be one similar to Hinsel, where it's going to be too early for Lewis Hall. I think it's going to be Trent Alexander-Arnold with Rico Lewis as the deputy, and at left back, I think it is still going to be Luke Shaw. I think you can't look past someone who's a natural left-footed player on the left-hand side, who's got the experience of playing for England and Man United, and I think it is still going to be Luke Shaw, with Rico Lewis as the backup to Trent Alexander-Arnold, and Tino Livramento as the fourth choice fullback and second choice left back. And now that we've got our fullbacks, we need our centre backs to complete the defence. And for me, there's quite a few options. You've got Branthwaite, Colwill, Kilman. You've also got John Stones. You've got Fikayo Tomori. You've got Joe Gomez. You've got Ezri Konza. Let me just move Trent and Shaw just a little bit further out for now. You've also got the likes of Harry Maguire. You've also got Mark Gay. You've also got Trevor Chalobah. You've also got Gerald Kwanzaa. Right. Let's try and pick 4, in my opinion, out of this lot. Which is going to be tough. But let's start with Let's start with Joe Gomez and Gerald Kwanzaa, who I really like the both of them. And I think Joe Gomez deserved to go in that England squad for the Euros. I think his work at centre-back and also debutising in left-back would have been crucial considering the left-back options England had. I think under new manager Arne slot, I think Joe Gomez is fundamentally and will always now be a centre-back because I think he likes fullbacks who are a bit more attacking, can get up and down the pitch and play like fullbacks do. And I don't think he likes players playing out of position. I think Joe Gomez will probably fill in right back and left back over the course of the season, but I think he sees him purely as a centre back, and that's where he wants to play him. And I think he'd rather play like Conor Bradley at right back if Trent were to be out injured, and Kostas Tsimikas as left back if Andy Robertson were to be out injured. So I think these two are competing to be the first choice starting centre back at Liverpool, along with the likes of Ibrahima Konate. And I think with squad rotation, they'll both get lots of minutes. And you maybe got to look at ahead to the next summer where Virgil van Dijk's contract expires with Liverpool. But I just don't think that between now and the World Cup, I don't think Gomez is going to get as many minutes as he needs to put himself in the shop window to get himself into this England squad. So it's not going to be Joe Gomez for me, even though I really like him. I think with Gerald Kwanzaa, he has a really good chance, especially if Virgil van Dijk were to leave. He'll have to step up massively. Maybe Liverpool buy another player. But his job is to try and get ahead of Ibrahima Konate in the Liverpool squad. And in my opinion, I think that he's a very good player. He's got a very bright future and definitely a future England national with many, many caps. But I think in 2 years' time, I think the work that he's going to have to do, the body of work that he's going to do, the games he's going to have to start ahead of the likes of everyone else. If he were to do it, he's an absolute shoo in this England squad. But for me, I think in 2 years' time, it'll be too early for him. And I don't think he's going to get the minutes. So for me, he's another one where I don't think he's going to be going. Then let's try and narrow down some of the others. Who's definitely going? John Stones, in my opinion, is definitely going. Now, he'll be 32 come the World Cup, but I think the way that Pep Guardiola manages his defenders and players in general, where they'll probably play 30 to 35 games in all competitions maximum, and John Stones won't be required to play many more than that, means that despite his injury issues over the last couple of seasons, I still think he'll be fit and, in peak form at 32 by the time the World Cup comes along. So I think he's definitely going. One for me, again, who's definitely going, is Mark Gahey. And I forget how young he is. He's 24. He's still 24. I thought he may be 26, but he's going to be 26 come the World Cup. And I think he will get the move from Crystal Palace to an elite side. No offense to Crystal Palace. And I think that Newcastle was maybe in that right direction, maybe this summer, but I think Crystal Palace were just unwilling to sell him. And I think that Mark Gahey will eventually get a move, maybe next summer. He'll be one of those centre-backs where everyone's talking about him. And I think his performances in the Euros were just phenomenal. Alongside John Stones, in the absence of Harry Maguire, I just thought to myself, yeah, he's got it. He's got it in abundance. He's got the composure. He's got the physicality. He's got the technique. Despite the fact that he's 6 foot tall, which a lot of people were, rubbing their noses up against it and saying, no, is he tall enough? Can he replace the physicality of Maguire? I think he absolutely stood the test. And I think for me, Stones and Gahey are probably England's first choice starting centre-back going forward. So for me, those two are definitely going. Who isn't going? I hate to say this, but I don't think Jared Branthwaite is going to be going to the World Cup. And I really, really like Branthwaite. I was so surprised that Gareth Southgate included him in his matches in March, because I didn't think that he would actually, have the bravery to include him because it's only been, half a season and a bit. But I think the one thing that will hold Branthwaite back, despite the fact that I think he's a phenomenal talent, is the style of football that Everton play. He will not be playing football with the ball at his feet all the time. He'll constantly be looking to try and make long balls. He'll constantly be trying to on the defense, and he won't be used to having the ball at his feet for the majority of the game. And so for me, I think that's one thing that puts him down a level, is the style of football that he's going to be playing at Everton compared to some of these other players. So will he get a move in the summer before the World Cup in 2 years? Maybe. And I think if he were to get a move next summer, I think that would really up his chances of getting in that England squad. Depends who he goes to though, because I can't see him go to Chelsea because they've already got Levi Colwill, who will come on to. Will he go to Man United? Will he play ahead of Martinez? Maybe. That could be one that works out if Man United's whole team form improves. Will he go to Manchester City? I think for Branthwaite, that would be the ideal move for him, constantly getting a start alongside like the John Stones. But I just think that between now and 2 years' time, the style of football, I think the talent is definitely there. And I think this is one of the biggest issues, that whoever the England manager is going to be, you're going to have to drop some players who are phenomenal talent. So I don't think, if I'm putting my money, if I'm a betting man, I don't think Branthwaite makes it just because of the style of football. Which makes me think that Levi Colwill will go. Because under Maresca, he seems to be the starting choice at left centre back. And if he continues to play there between now and the World Cup, I think he absolutely has to go. Because as a natural left-footed player for the left centre back role, but not only that, he can also deputise at left centre back as well. And for me, that is something that, even if we take three right backs with the likes of Trent, Livramento, and Rico Lewis, and Livramento and Lewis can deputise as left back as well, having an actual left-footed option there as well doesn't hurt whatsoever. And we saw him do it against Republic of Ireland, even though obviously, no disrespect intended, Ireland aren't the best international side considering their ranking and the quality of their players. So for me, those three definitely have to go. And then you're picking your fourth choice in the back, in my opinion. And I really like Trevor Chalobah. I cannot believe the fact that Chelsea don't want him at the club. I know obviously it's probably for PSR issues and trying to sell a homegrown player for pure profit, but I just think that he's a phenomenal talent. I think he'll have a good season at Crystal Palace this year, but it's where he goes next season when he makes a permanent move after Chelsea don't want him, where it really determines how well he's going to do and if he gets into the limelight enough to be in the England squad. I think for me, there's too much uncertainty around Trevor Chalobah, so I don't think he's going to make it. Is Max Kilman going to make it though? I really like Max Kilman. I think he's very underrated when he's time at Wolves, and I think at West Ham, he'll be getting a lot more into the spotlight as well. Hopefully West Ham can go further up in the table. And I think it's a bit unfair that just because he moved to West Ham now everyone's talking about him for England, where at Wolves I think he was also good enough. And we can see technically he's very good. I think there was a moment in the West Ham Man City game where the ball was coming across the box. He left the ball completely, let it run across his body, and he was completely fine to do that because there was no one around him and his awareness was so superb in that moment. And then he also started the attack with a long breaking ball to, I think it was Mohamed Kudus. So I think Kilman technically has great feet and the aptitude to become an England international, but not only that, I think that defensively he's rock solid as well. But if you're already taking Levi Colwill, are you going to be taking Max Kilman as another left-sided option? I think it's one where we'll talk about Max Kilman as a nearly man. He nearly made it to the England squad, and I think he's a phenomenal player. But I think to be in this England squad now, you need to be one of the best players in the world in your position. And I don't think Max Kilman will ever reach that. And it's a shame because years gone by, he definitely would have made this England squad. Just 5 years sooner, he would have been in the squad, maybe instead of Tyrone Mings. But yeah, for me, it's not going to be Max Kilman as much as I like him. Is it going to be Harry Maguire? 33-year-old Harry Maguire at the time, and for me, I don't think so. I don't think it's going to be Harry Maguire because he's got 1 year left on his contract at Manchester United. He'll be leaving the club probably, you'd expect, on the free transfer at the end of the season. And where does he go from there? Is he still going to be getting minutes? Is he still going to be playing week in, week out? Is he still going to be playing to the level that he needs to be to playing at England and starting ahead of the likes of the other players? I don't think you need to worry about experience because I think a lot of this England team are very experienced, and for me, I think Harry Maguire at 33 years of age won't make it to the World Cup in 2026. So that's another one for me. And then it comes down to Fikayo Tomori and Ezri Konsa, who are both very talented footballers. Konsa at Aston Villa, Tomori at AC Milan. And Fikayo Tomori has been overlooked a lot at his time at AC Milan. I think he definitely should have made more England squads, maybe made it to more tournaments as well. And it's a difficult one, but I think when I'm looking at the trajectory of Ezri Konsa, playing week in, week out for Aston Villa under Unai Emery, now in the Champions League, will he be there? Will he be involved next season as well? Yes, absolutely. But for Fikayo Tomori, I hated Gareth Southgate for constantly thinking about aerial duels, and that the reason being why he just didn't fancy Tomori. I think that was definitely the reason why I didn't fancy Fikayo Tomori. But I've looked at them, and they're not great in comparison to everyone else. And I know Serie A is a different league, but I just can't get past it because at internationals, the smallest margins matter. And I think with these four as your centre-backs going to the World Cup, I think England will be fine. I don't think they'll miss Tomori. So it is with a heavy heart that I'm not taking Fikayo Tomori. And I will be taking Colwill, Stones, Gay and Konsa to the World Cup. I think I'm going to take John Stones, Mark Gay as my out-and-out starting centre-backs with Trent Alexander-Arnold and Luke Shaw as the fullbacks. And this is perfect because you can have Trent Alexander-Arnold inverting into midfield, and you can have maybe the Mark Gay on the right hand side because he played left centre back for Crystal Palace, and John Stones maybe more like that, and you could have him alongside another midfielder there as well because Luke Shaw, as we know, can play centre back as well, and I'm really happy with that back four the way it is. You could probably have Stones the other way around as well. I'm not too fussed, but I think that's one that absolutely works, and for me, I think that is going to be England's starting four, and then the backup of Konza and Cole as well at centre back. Which then brings us on to the midfielders, and there are a hell of a lot of midfielders for England to choose from in my opinion. So let me just go through them. Rice, Gomez, Wharton, Mainu, Gray, Jones, Bellingham, Gallagher, Scott, Anderson, Foden, Maddison, Eze, Palmer, Grealish, Morgan Gibbs-White, and Harvey Elliott. And I just think to myself that England have a lot of options in the midfield as well. Let's try and break it down. Okay, so who do I think definitely won't be going? I think Archie Gray. I think the move to Tottenham Hotspur was the right move for him. And I think him going there with Ange Postecoglou and his way of trying to introduce young players into the squad is absolutely the right decision for him and his career. But I think the World Cup probably come too soon. I don't see him getting too many minutes in the Premier League side this season. I think maybe in the Europa League for Spurs, that's definitely more of an option. I think next year he'll be starting to make his way into that first team, but I don't think it's going to be enough to be in the England squad when you look at the talent available there. So for me, Archie Gray is not quite yet, but definitely one for the future. I'm then going to skip over the number sixes, because I think all four of them are definite considerations and options. So I'm going to go to the number 8 and see who I can eliminate. I think I like Elliot Anderson at Nottingham Forest. I liked him when he was at Newcastle as well. Started the first few games for Forest, done really well on set pieces as well. Really good set piece taker by the looks of it. Something I didn't quite realise he had in his locker. But I just think, well, the talent ahead of him, I don't think he's going to be doing enough at Forest in 2 years' time to be able to get in that side. So for me, it's not going to be him. I also think Morgan Gibbs-White, his fellow teammate at Nottingham Forest, I look at him and I just think, I really like him, and he definitely deserved his England call-up in the last few Nations League matches against Ireland and Finland. But I just think, look at all the talent you've got ahead of you in the number 10 position. Foden, Maddison, Eze, Palmer, Grealish. There is no way Morgan Gibbs-White is going to make it. Unless, I'm more than happy for him to prove me wrong, but I just don't see it personally, so it's not for me. I also think Harvey Elliott. I really like Harvey Elliott. I think for Liverpool, he's going to be a fantastic player. Is he going to ever break into that Liverpool side ahead of Szoboszlai, ahead of McAllister, ahead of Gravenberch, who seems to be the first choice midfield 3? Is he going to be playing right wing ahead of Salah or Chiesa, who they never bought? No chance. No chance whatsoever. So he needs to focus on breaking into that Liverpool side before he can do it with England. So for me, again, no chance. And I think Curtis Jones, who I really like again, but similar vibes to Harvey Elliott. Is he going to break into that Liverpool midfield? I think he's got more of a chance than Harvey Elliott, and I think he's more likely to do it. But I just don't see it. I really just don't see how he's going to break into that Liverpool side at the moment. So for me, no Curtis Jones either. And now I think that's it. Although, no, actually, I'll probably, again, Alex Scott, obviously at Bournemouth. I think he's a fantastic player, great future. But again, similar to Elliot Anderson, I just don't see it with all the talent available. So again, no Alex Scott for me. Is that everyone? Yeah, okay, that's everyone who I want to talk about. So I want to give an honorable mention to all of them, but these are the actual players who I think will probably be in the chance of making that squad. And there are a lot of players and you cannot take them all. Who can take, who not going to take? Let's start with the number 6s, because in the last 2 Nations League games, it was Declan Rice and then Kobbie Mainoo, and then it was Declan Rice and then Angel Gomez. So I think it's pretty comfortable, and if I think we're all being honest, it's definitely going to be Declan Rice going to the World Cup, because, he's arguably England's best midfielder, one of the best in terms of defensively, and his legwork in that engine room of England midfield. He can go forward and defend, and I think he's crucial for me. In terms of Gomez, Wharton and Mainoo, we've already seen Lee Carsley not favour Wharton in preference for Gomez, and we saw Gareth Southgate prefer Wharton, but we saw Mainoo come into it as well. And the one thing that really gets me, and I've said it maybe once already in this video, is the big problem when it comes to the World Cup is the England manager is going to need balls. He's going to need massive balls, because if you think about the last international friendly, there was no Phil Foden, he was injured. No Cole Palmer, he was injured. No Jude Bellingham, he was injured. Come the World Cup, all those players will want to be playing and will probably be fit. And how are you going to fit all of this attacking talent into the side and into the squad, let alone the first 11? And I don't think you're going to do it. So there is an argument to be made that, you know, you could try and shoehorn all the best players. But in my opinion, I think it's all about balance, and finding the right balance in that England midfield is crucial in order for England to be successful in the World Cup. So if the manager, if it were to be Lee Carsley, decides to play one of Angel Gomez or Kobbie Mainoo and Declan Rice, I'd be perfectly fine with that. Because I think if that's best for the team balance, then I think absolutely go for it. Regardless of who the names are, that's what they should do. But can you really see that if the England manager were to play, let's say it was Mainoo and Rice in the two, and then you say, okay, pick one to play alongside them of Foden, Maddison, Eze, Palmer, Grealish, Gallagher and Bellingham. I think everyone would absolutely lose their heads and say, oh, you've got to be playing him. You've got to be playing him. And I'm on the fence of saying, do whatever you need to do in order to get the best balance for the team. I don't care who you leave out of the side. That's my honest opinion. I have no preference as long as England are successful and do well. But I just think that come that World Cup, whoever the manager is, if it's Lee Carsley, so be it. I just don't think that they'll have the balls to be able to drop one of England's best players or several of England's best players. So for me, I think Declan Rice will be starting in that number 6 position, regardless of, you know, if there are players who are better suited and maybe there's balance. I just think you cannot leave out all this attacking talent, and the England manager will not do that. So for me, the England manager, whoever they will be, will choose Declan Rice in the 6 in order to try and accommodate and get 2 of the remaining 7 players. And if we're being honest, I'm not ruling any of these players out to be in the squad just yet. Gomez, Wharton and Mainoo. I will rule out Conor Gallagher starting immediately, because I don't think he will. I think all the others are probably better options. I think Bellingham will start. I think Rice will play in that 6, and I think Bellingham will play in an 8 position. Just because I think the throw around him, and I think he's just, you know, he's a very underrated player as well. No, not actually underrated, underappreciated, because there were people turning on him during the Euros, and I just think that was a bit silly. You know, there is all this media hype around him being like this sensational generational talent and being at Real Madrid and all the highlights and the attention that comes with that. But I think he is deserving of being this in the squad. And also, think about it, he could probably go a bit more forward if you have Rice sitting and then Trent Alexander-Arnold there as well. Although I will say that I did really like seeing like Rice on the right-hand side of midfield to cover for Trent Alexander-Arnold. And at times, Rice was playing a bit deeper than Trent, and I think that was a great combination. But I think come the Euros, sorry, I keep saying the Euros, come the World Cup, it will definitely be Declan Rice in that 6, because I think to try and fit all this talent. And then who are you going to play further ahead? Well, if I'm being honest, I'm going to say right now, I'm looking at James Maddison and I'm saying, are you even going to be in the squad? And I love James Maddison. I think he's a fantastic talent. But if I'm being completely honest, he's not as consistent as some of the other players. If you think about the fact that Cole Palmer last year, best young player, phenomenal player, Chelsea's most important player, their talisman. Phil Foden, Premier League player of the year. Man City, you know, were relying on him so heavily in the absence of Kevin De Bruyne. And I think he's going to be taking up that Kevin De Bruyne mantle. And, you know, maybe we've already started to see the beginning of that transition as well. So for me, they're definitely in the squad. I think Jack Grealish, phenomenal talent. You know, we really saw the best of him in that Ireland game where he was given a bit more of a free role and just to go express himself and play in the positions where he thought the opposition were weakest. So for me, he's there. And I think Eberechi Eze, he is, again, I think he's better than probably Maddison, and he can even play on the left-hand side if you need him to do so. And I think he's probably going to get a move soon. Whether it's going to be before the World Cup or not, we'll have to wait and see. But I'm definitely eyeing him up for a move next summer where I think he's going to be playing at an elite level. So for me, James Maddison doesn't make the squad. And so I'm looking at it and I'm trying to think who's going to start for England. And if I'm being honest, and up until recently, I would always have said Phil Foden. Generational talent, fantastic what he does at Man City. But what you do at England does matter as well. And I think for England, he has been poor. So starting in that midfield, I'm going to actually have Cole Palmer. And no one's going to... Some people will like that, a lot of people won't, because everyone will have the preference on who they'd rather want, and I'm completely fine with that. But for me, I think that Cole Palmer, his impact off the bench during the Euros was really, really positive. He was constantly getting the ball in really good areas and being aggressive with it. And so for me, I think that Cole Palmer definitely has to be going to the World Cup, and I think he will be. And for me, I think he should start. I think you can definitely see a world where if it was to be the manager with Newcastle, you could definitely play a modern way. You could play with Stones, Gay, Shaw as a back three, Trent Alexander-Arnold inverting into midfield alongside Declan Rice, who would be that defensive work rate and be that running power as well. And you could even push up Bellingham and Foden to play in the box midfield as well. I think that could work as long as you have the players to keep the ball. And I think England do have, and now probably and hopefully with a manager who will have the bravery to do that as well in competition as in the World Cup as well. So for me, I think that's going to be my midfield three. On the bench, I am going to have Phil Foden on the bench. Of course, I'm going to have Phil Foden in my team. I'm not going to have him starting. I think if as an option off the bench, I think it'd be fantastic. I think for me, Grealish goes. I think we saw that he has levels that we haven't quite seen yet, and he can absolutely go to. And if the strikers were a bit more off him, like they were against Ireland, I think, maybe even that role that Palmer's taking up there, he could definitely do it. And even off the bench, maybe in the Bellingham role, being a bit more free, and he can also play on the left-hand side. So yeah. And I'm also going to take Eze, because I think he is a phenomenal talent, and he could do really, really well. But with those three attacking players, you need some defensive cover. So who's going to be the backup to Declan Rice if you were to get injured? Who's going to be the player that you probably take Bellingham or Palmer off if you're winning 2-0 and to be a bit more defensive? I'll be honest, I really like this group of players. But I don't think that Conor Gallagher is going to be that. I just think with Conor Gallagher, I think going to Atletico Madrid, he's going to be a bit more advanced than the midfielders they have there. He's going to be trying to press the team as well. And I think when you think about it, can he do the 6 role? He probably could, but not to the level England require. Can he do this 8 role? Yeah. And can he do this 10 role? Yeah. So he's fine for this position, which I don't think is creative enough for that position. Could he do the Bellingham role? Absolutely. But I think that in the next few years, I think Kobbie Mainoo and Adam Wharton are going to have phenomenal seasons. And I think that Adam Wharton, with a lot of top clubs looking for an elite number 6, maybe he's that, maybe he's not that. I'm really interested to see him for Crystal Palace with Czech Decore, who's back now, because in that 1-0 draw against Chelsea, what I really saw was, a player getting forward and had really good feet on him as well, able to drive forward at the heart of that Chelsea defence. And for me, someone who has got a very bright future, and next summer, I think everyone's going to be talking about him getting a move away. Is it going to be in the 6? Is it going to be 8? I'm not quite sure. But I think if my money on it, I'd probably say in the 6. And I think Kobbie Mainoo, who, in my opinion, with a new manager who probably will not be Erik ten Hag in 2 years' time, as that 8 option under Bellingham, I think for me, Angel Gomez doesn't make it. I think he was really, really good, but he did the simple things well, but sometimes very underrated, and people often criticize that. But I think you need someone to do that in your team. But for me, I think when you think about all the other talent that England have, I don't think he's going to make it. And I really like him, and I like what I saw of him, and there's a pleasure to see him, a lot of him recently, but I don't think he's going to make it. Which brings us on to then the wingers. Saka, Bowen, Madueke, and James McAtee, who I'd put in this chat because I think he might get minutes for Man City. But if we're being honest, looking at the elite players that are here, in 2 years' time, I don't think McAtee is going to be it. So I'm going to get rid of him immediately. So I'm going to Saka, Bowen, and Madueke. I think it's obviously going to be Bukayo Saka on the right-hand side if he's fit. I think for England, he's been arguably England's best player the last 2 or 3 years, along with like Jordan Pickford and Harry Kane. And for me, the Bukayo Saka, I don't think we need to talk about him too much. He's outstanding. He's clearly the outstanding option at right winger. So for me, he's absolutely going to start. Who's going to be his deputy on that right wing? I mean, you could say it could be Palmer there. It could also be Phil Foden there as well, which is definitely an option. But I think with the option of having Foden, I want to see Foden in the midfield now. I really, really want to see Foden in the midfield. I don't think he's as quick as Saka. I don't think Saka's rapid by all means, but I think he's not as quick as Saka. I don't think Palmer's as quick as Saka. So what I really want is, off the bench, a change of pace, a bit of explosiveness to really change the game. And it's one of these two. It's really, really hard because Bowen has been so consistent for so long for England now. Is he going to continue to do it? I think so. But is Madueke going to supersede him in terms of that? I like him, but I don't think so. Just based on the fact that I think with all the players that Chelsea have, there will be times where Cole Palmer moves back out to the right hand side and then Madueke is dropped. You've got Pedro Neto, Christopher Nkunku, João Felix. There's going to be a lot of rotation, whereas I think Jarrod Bowen is going to be starting week in, week out. Now the club captain for West Ham as well. So for me, I just think Bowen's going to go just ahead of him. Left wing. Anthony Gordon, Marcus Rashford, Morgan Rogers, Raheem Sterling, Emil Smith-Rowe, Callum Hudson-Odoi, and Jamie Bino-Gittins. And I haven't included Jadon Sancho, just because I have no idea how Jadon Sancho is going to go. He could probably get it back into the squad, and it's probably done him dirty by not including him, I'll be honest. But I don't think he's going to make it. But these players, there's some which I wanted to put in, because again, I just want to give them a shout out. I think they're really good players on the up. I don't think Callum Hudson-Odoi is going to make it. If I'm being honest, I think he's a really good player for Nottingham Forest, but I don't think he's going to make it. I like Emil Smith-Rowe. I really, really do. But I think for Smith-Rowe, with Saka playing on the right-hand side, England need a bit of pace on the left-hand side. And for me, his competition is to try and get into that midfield. And it's a very difficult job with, like I said, Palmer, Eze, Grealish, Foden. But I think for me, Emil Smith-Rowe needs to get himself into that England midfield rather than out wide. And so, I think we need to see levels from him that we saw from Grealish at Villa or Manderson at Leicester. And he's not there yet. He's made a very promising start. We'll have to see. Time will tell. He'll be a late one, I think, who's in contention of the World Cup. And, maybe around the March time, like, oh, Emil Smith-Rowe's numbers last year, he's done phenomenally. We'll have to wait and see. Not for me. Not yet. I think Jamie Bino-Gittins is incredibly exciting, and I would love to see him go. I think it's a little bit just too early to be in the England squad, considering all the world-class talent that they have. But I think he's a wildcard shot that I just wanted to chuck in there. I don't think he's going to make it. Raheem Sterling. I don't think he's going to make it. I think he could do really well for Arsenal. It's a flip of a coin whether he starts really well or doesn't. There's an opportunity for him to get ahead of like Martinelli and Trossard on the left-hand side. Not only just be a deputy to Saka on the right-hand side. But I think it's going to be an okay loan move for him. I then think the next year, where's he going to go? That's going to be massive. And could he then get himself in the England squad? Maybe. But for me, I'm too much uncertainty. I don't think he's going to make it. Come down to these three. And again, I'm going to dismiss another one straight away. Marcus Rashford, not been impressed. Absolutely not been impressed. He's got all the talent at the world at his feet. He's a phenomenal player on his day. But his day doesn't come often enough. And for me, it's not Marcus Rashford. Which brings me on to Anthony Gordon and Morgan Rogers. And I think Anthony Gordon is the outstanding option at left wing. I think someone who's got that bit of pace, who has got potential in him to massively improve the next 2 years as well. We saw Liverpool being linked with him in the summer. And I think if he could make a move to a top club as well, not the Newcastle aren't, but one that's consistently competing for the league. And I think he could be a phenomenal player as well. So for me, I think thinking about the left wing position, the lack of options there are of quality compared to the right hand side, let's say, and the whole left hand side in general, I think Anthony Gordon for me is the left winger. Morgan Rogers, will he make it? Because he's playing a bit more centrally for Villa. And if he's starting to play a bit more centrally, then his competition becomes Bellingham, Palmer, Eze, Grealish, Foden. And when you think about the fact that Eze could play on this left hand side, Grealish could play on this left hand side, will Morgan Rogers make it? Still very young, will obviously be playing for the England under-21s. I'm going to say he just doesn't make it. Just. So I'm saying my backup options to Anthony Gordon would be Grealish, Eze, as well as being options in midfield as well. Yeah, I'm going to go with that. And then it brings on to the number 9s. And for me, by the time the World Cup run comes around in 2 years' time, these, I think, will be the options for England at number 9 up front. Harry Kane, obviously, regardless of if you think he's in or out of form at the moment, he's still, England's best striker. Recently got his 100 cap. Congratulations to him. And I think he will be in the squad at the very minimum. I think Ollie Watkins, I don't see a world in which he isn't the second choice. The only thing I would say is John Duran has started the season very, very well. And with more games coming up, maybe there's competition for Watkins, but I just think that Unai Emery loves Ollie Watkins. Everything he does off the ball, his intelligence in this play as well in terms of pressing, I think he will continue to be Aston Villa's number one. For me, Watkins will definitely be number two. I think Dominic Solanke does have a shout. Does a really, really good shout because of the fact that he's now playing at Spurs. 19 goals, 3 assists last season, 22 goals in all competitions for Bournemouth. And I think Solanke will do really, really well at Spurs. And I think he'll score a lot of goals in that Ange Postecoglou side. He creates a lot of chances. They just need someone to put the ball in the back of the net. And I think with Ivan Toney now moving to Saudi Arabia, obviously, good luck to him. But I think at the level he's playing at, he's not going to be in contention for the England squad. I think Callum Wilson now is too old. So I really think that these three are the options. And I wanted to put Eddie Nketiah as an outside shout just because I think maybe he'll get some minutes and goals at Crystal Palace more than he did at Arsenal. But I think that with Jean-Philippe Mateta at the moment, I can't see Nketiah starting week in, week out, scoring 15 to 20 goals a season and then competing with the likes of the players ahead of him. And also Liam Delap at Ipswich Town. I think it's probably going to be the future of England strikers, and I don't think that's the worst shot in the world. But I think that, again, this one's a little bit too soon. And so if these were to be your three options up front, I don't think they're too bad. I think they're really, really good. I think you've got everything you need from them. I think you've got Harry Kane probably being the starting striker in my opinion. And I think Watkins as an option off the bench. And you've got Solanke, who's another option off the bench, something a bit different as well. And for me, that would be my England starting 11. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. I think that's a side that could compete with most sides in the world and could go on to win the World Cup as well. Let me just make sure I've actually got 26 though. 1, 2, 3, 11, 12, 13, 14. 25. Oh my god. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. 25 players. So if I've got Wharton and Maino as the backups, I could take another attacking player. I'll tell you what. I'm also going to take Morgan Rogers. I think he's a phenomenal talent. I really, really do. I only had 25 initially. I don't know why I didn't put 26, but it's probably going to be a 26-man squad come the World Cup. And I'm also going to take Morgan Rogers because, yeah, I think his ceiling is going up, and I think he could deputise on the left-hand side for Gordon while also being an option in midfield as well. And I think this side could do really well. If you think about, like I said, the box midfield of Palmer and Bellingham, with Trent Alexander-Arnold, Declan Rice as the base. I mean, just look at that. Look at all that attacking talent with the three at the back, with the two of them in midfield. And then off the bench as well, you've also got the likes of Phil Foden you can bring on, Jack Grealish you could bring on, Eberechi Eze, Watkins, Solanke, Bowen. I think this is a really, really talented England squad that one could go all the way and win the World Cup as well. But there you have it. I've probably rambled on a bit too long. There's my England squad for the World Cup in 2026. Let me know what you guys think. Do you agree with my starting 11? Do you agree with my squad? Who do I have that you wouldn't have, and who would you include instead? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one.